How many times have you started over? Really think about it. The new diet that begins every Monday and quietly ends by Thursday. The workout routine you've restarted more times than you can count. The business idea, the creative project, the personal goal that you've begun with full enthusiasm, only to abandon a few weeks later, and then, months down the line, begin again with the exact same enthusiasm as if the last attempt never happened at all. If this pattern feels painfully familiar, I want you to know something important before we go any further. This isn't because you're lazy. It isn't because you lack willpower or discipline or the ability to follow through. There's a specific, identifiable reason you keep starting over. And once you actually understand it, you can finally break the cycle for good. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving deep into one of the most frustrating patterns people experience in their personal growth journey. The exhausting cycle of starting, stopping, and starting again, seemingly without ever making real, lasting progress. Let's talk honestly about why this happens, and more importantly, exactly what to do to finally break free from it. Let's start by naming the actual pattern clearly, because I think seeing it laid out honestly is the first step toward understanding it. It usually goes something like this. Something triggers a burst of motivation, a difficult moment, an inspiring video, a new year, a specific date that feels symbolic. You start strong, full of energy and enthusiasm. The first few days feel exciting, even easy. Then, gradually, the initial excitement fades. Life gets busy, or difficult, or simply routine again. You miss a day, then another. And somewhere in that gap, a quiet, familiar voice shows up, telling you that you've already failed, that this attempt, like the ones before it, simply wasn't meant to work out. So, you stop completely, often without even consciously deciding to. And then, weeks or months later, another burst of motivation arrives, and the entire cycle begins again, from the very beginning. If you recognize this pattern in your own life, I want to walk you through exactly why it keeps happening, because the reasons are more specific and more fixable than most people realize. The first reason is that you're relying on motivation instead of building systems. Motivation is what gets you started, but it was never designed to sustain long-term effort. It's an emotional state, influenced by mood, energy, recent events, dozens of factors completely outside your control. When you build your goals entirely around motivation, you're essentially building your entire plan on the least reliable resource available to you. The moment that initial burst of motivation fades, which it always does, you have nothing left to keep you moving forward, and the entire effort collapses. The second reason is the all-or-nothing trap. A lot of people, when they start a new goal, set an extremely high, often unrealistic standard for what doing it right actually looks like. Perfect adherence, every single day, with no exceptions. This might feel motivating in the beginning, but it creates an incredibly fragile system. The moment you miss even one day, whether from illness, exhaustion, or simple life circumstances, the all-or-nothing mindset interprets that single missed day as complete failure. Instead of simply continuing the next day, the entire effort gets abandoned. Because in an all-or-nothing framework, there's no room for anything less than perfect execution. The third reason is starting too big, too fast. When motivation is high, it's easy to commit to an intense, ambitious version of a new habit or goal, and completely underestimate how unsustainable that intensity actually is once the initial excitement wears off. Committing to an hour of exercise every single day when you've been sedentary for years, or trying to completely overhaul your diet overnight, or attempting to work on a massive project for several hours daily, right from the very first day. These ambitious starts feel exciting initially, but they're rarely sustainable. And when they inevitably become too difficult to maintain, people often quit entirely, rather than simply scaling the intensity back to something more realistic. The fourth reason is that you're solving the same problem the same way, expecting a different result. If you've started and stopped something multiple times, using the exact same approach each time, without ever examining why the previous attempts actually failed, you're essentially setting yourself up to repeat the same outcome. Real change requires actually diagnosing what specifically went wrong last time, not just restarting with the same plan and hoping this time will simply feel different, purely through sheer willpower or enthusiasm. The fifth reason, and this one is often the most overlooked, is that starting over has become emotionally comfortable in a strange, counterintuitive way. Starting fresh feels hopeful, exciting, full of possibility. It's a clean slate, free from the accumulated frustration of a difficult middle stretch. Continuing something you've already been doing for a while, especially through a difficult or unmotivating phase, requires pushing through discomfort. Starting over, ironically, can become its own subtle form of avoidance, a way of chasing that exciting, hopeful feeling of a fresh start, instead of actually pushing through the harder, less exciting middle of an existing effort. Now that we've identified these patterns clearly, let's talk about how to actually break the cycle with specific, practical strategies. The first strategy is building systems instead of relying on motivation. A system is something that doesn't require you to feel a certain way in order to function. A specific time each day dedicated to your goal. A minimum, non-negotiable version of the habit that you commit to, even on your lowest energy days. Systems remove the dependency on motivation almost entirely, which means your progress no longer collapses the moment your initial enthusiasm fades. The second strategy is abandoning the all-or-nothing mindset and replacing it with what's sometimes called the never miss twice rule. Missing one day is not failure. It's simply being human. The goal isn't perfect, uninterrupted execution. The goal is making sure that one missed day never turns into 2, 3, or an indefinite stretch of abandoned effort. This single shift alone dramatically increases the likelihood of long-term consistency because it removes the fragile, unrealistic standard that was causing people to quit entirely after a single normal human slip-up. The third strategy is starting dramatically smaller than feels necessary. If you want to build a consistent exercise habit, commit to just 10 minutes, not an intense hour-long session. If you want to build a writing habit, commit to 2 sentences, not an entire page. This might feel almost too easy, and that's exactly the point. A goal that feels almost effortless to maintain is far more likely to actually survive the inevitable dip in motivation that happens after the initial excitement fades. And once consistency is firmly established, intensity can always be increased gradually from a foundation that's actually sustainable. The fourth strategy is conducting an honest review before starting again. Instead of jumping straight back in with the same approach as before, ask yourself specifically, what caused the last attempt to stop? Was the goal unrealistic? Was there a specific trigger, a busy period, a stressful event that derailed things? Was the standard for success simply too rigid? Identifying the actual, specific reason for the previous stop allows you to adjust your approach this time, instead of unconsciously repeating the exact same pattern that led to the same outcome before. The fifth strategy is recognizing and actively resisting the pull toward the excitement of a fresh start, when what you actually need is to push through an existing, difficult middle stretch. The next time you feel the urge to abandon your current effort and start something entirely new, pause and ask yourself honestly, am I actually solving a real problem with this fresh start? Or am I simply chasing the temporary emotional high of beginning again, instead of doing the harder work of continuing what I already started? I want to say something important here, because I think it needs to be said clearly. Starting over is not inherently a bad thing. Sometimes a previous approach genuinely wasn't working, and a fresh start, built on real, honest lessons from what went wrong before, is exactly the right move. The problem isn't starting over itself. The problem is starting over repeatedly, using the exact same flawed approach each time, without ever actually addressing the real, underlying reasons the previous attempts didn't last. This is the crucial difference between someone who eventually breaks the cycle and someone who remains stuck in it indefinitely. It's not that successful people never fail or never need to adjust their approach. It's that they actually study their failures honestly, extract real lessons from them, and use those lessons to build a slightly better, more sustainable system each time, instead of simply restarting with fresh enthusiasm and an identical, unexamined plan. I want you to think about the goal you've restarted the most times in your life. I want you to honestly ask yourself, using everything we've talked about today, which of these patterns has actually been driving that cycle? Was it relying purely on motivation? Was it an all-or-nothing mindset that turned a single missed day into complete abandonment? Was it starting too big, too fast, in a way that simply wasn't sustainable? Was it repeating the same failed approach without ever really examining why it failed in the first place? Once you honestly identify the real pattern, you finally have the ability to change it. Deliberately, instead of simply hoping that this time, somehow, things will magically turn out differently, purely through willpower or enthusiasm alone. So here's what I want you to do. Take the goal you've restarted the most, and this time, before diving back in, take 15 minutes to honestly diagnose what specifically caused the pattern to break down before. Then, build the smallest, most sustainable version of that goal you can imagine. One that feels almost too easy to maintain, and commit to the never miss twice rule as your only real standard for success. Because the cycle of starting over doesn't break through more motivation, or more willpower, or more dramatic, ambitious starts. It breaks through smaller, smarter, more honest systems, built specifically to survive the inevitable moments when motivation, once again, quietly fades away. If this video resonated with you, let me know in the comments. Tell me the goal you're finally committing to, using a smarter, more sustainable approach. This time, I read every comment, and I would genuinely love to hear from you. If you found value in this, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. Thank you for spending this time with me. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.